Hello everyone, welcome to a new video of this series where I conduct interview to the best 25 European players who qualified for Worlds in Anaheim 2025. And for this episode number 6, we do have Zephymastyx with us. Welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to see you.
So the first questions are going to be easy. So just tell us your name, how old are you, and how did you get close to Pokemon Go in first place?
Yeah, I'm Zephymastyx, real name Alexander König from Germany. I'm a software developer. I've played Pokemon since the very first generation. And yeah, when Pokemon Go got released, I immediately started playing it. And when PvP got released, I also quickly got interested because it was like the only end game content, because raids still, just tap the screen quite easy. And PvP was the only content where you, let's say, actually have to think. So I got interested in it quickly.
Yeah, well, some might argue that still PvP is where you have to tap the screen, and whoever taps the screen faster wins, according to haters. Yeah, but it's actually
If you watch someone, it might look like that because you do tap the screen quickly. Like, I think I saw something about an update where they might give an option to hold the screen to continue attacking. I don't know if that will make it better, but we'll see if that actually gets into the game.
Yeah, everyone has a different tapping style. So people just tapping with 5 fingers, or just not to miss any potential nanosecond between the taps. Very, very tiring. Okay, so let's have a look at the results for your season. You basically attended, if I'm not mistaken, almost all regionals except for Seville. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And Stockholm.
And Stockholm, yes. Okay. So Utrecht, 4th place, of course, is the result that stands out the most. So, and I'm expecting you would say Utrecht when, if I asked you, what's the team you were the proudest of?
Yeah, I don't think too much about the team after the event, but obviously the one that performed the best would be the one that sticks to memory the most. Also, the Dusclops Ferret core just worked really nicely. Like both in Utrecht and Bologna, where we used the same team, there were so many matches where having a backline of Dusclops and Ferret felt perfectly safe because there was nothing that really countered that.
Yeah, and I must say that you were a Dusclops user way before it was a meta thing. Yeah, so even better, you were a legacy Dusclops player.
Yeah, you could say that because it's got relevant with the meta update, because I guess it just works better against the Fury Cutter users mostly. Probably that's part of the reason. But Utrecht and Bologna were both before the meta update, and was probably one of the only Dusclops users there.
Yeah, but it's an interesting choice because I guess the main reason why one would think of Dusclops in the old meta would just potentially to have a decent neutral answer to the main fairy type, which was Tinkerton at the time. It's going to be the Dedenne now. So the main role is still kinda the same. And also can see that you always use Gastrodon. So you must be a real Gastrodon enjoyer.
Yeah, you can see it in the background as well. I just like the Pokemon, and I liked it with the meta update after Worlds last year. There probably must have users that did perform similarly and might be more neutral, because Gastrodon can be difficult as soon as you get a lineup to a grass type, but I just enjoyed using it and just decided to stick with it for the season.
Yeah, and for this reason, you also you always paired Gastrodon with Talonflame most of the time, but also Lona Sandslash or Mantipats or Ariados, plus another soft answer to cross types, at least. So definitely You are aware that Gaston is Omega weak to grass types, but also you know how to protect it. I see in Gdansk you used Hakamo. Would you tell me more about it? Like, was there any particular reason for this choice?
I don't remember the meta of Gdansk quite well, but I like the choice and it worked in practice. I think I could have performed better with it because Gdansk wasn't the best result. I was aware that the team I used was kind of weak to Talonflame, and at the time Talonflame wasn't really a part of the meta, so I hoped I wouldn't face that many. But unfortunately, I faced one in winners round 3 against PvP David, who knew how to use it to abuse the weakness I had against Talonflame. And then in losers, I also placed a player with Talonflame, so it didn't work out quite as well as it could. But yeah, I think Hakomo was not too bad into that meta, but I think one of the good things about it, because around the time Ariados was very popular, and Hakomo is very good at countering it because it resists all the moves except the fast move.
Yeah. And definitely Hakamo is also a very good defensive typing combination.
I think the hardest counter was Atsumaro, which was on many teams, but I think it wasn't at the top of the usage, and I think it was kind of playable against most of the other picks that were popular at the time.
Yeah, but again, it's just one counter, and most of the time you have enough coverage, enough good stats to just power through all the other matchups. And yeah, it's a decent pick. Now we're gonna probably see his bigger brother, so Hakamo with clanging scales, super powerful attack, 120 attack, 120 power for 45 energy. So yeah, we need to be prepared for this as well. Maybe we will see a shift to Poison Chap just to counter the Dene better. Who knows? Yeah, we will see.
Actually, the community is very close. I think. I'm still thinking it might be possible that the stats of the move might be reduced a little when it actually gets released, because it wouldn't be the first time stats get updated very shortly before something gets released. So I think in a few hours we'll know for sure if it's as powerful as it looks or if it gets nerfed last second.
Yeah, I mean they basically have 1 day, right? Because it's tomorrow. Today is the 20th. So yeah.
And in Australia, it's I think in a few hours from when we are recording this.
Yeah. Well, so I tend to assume we should be relatively safe, at least. But yeah, if they were to reduce the damage, probably just Como will go back to be almost useless in the OGL meta. It's already extremely off meta and very risky, and it will just probably become fringe meta if the move stats will be confirmed like this. Like some players will definitely use it, and it has also a good carryover potential because you can farm something down and then you can just get both shields back if you want, because Clanging Scales is way too broken, and which makes me think probably you don't really need close combat most of the time, especially against Diggersby. You relatively almost deal kind of the same damage with Clanging Scales as well. And especially with Poison Chap, still you need 2 moves. So maybe pairing Clanging Scales with a cheaper Brick Break might be the way to go. Maybe 1 Brick Break and 1 Clanging Scales. Yeah.
Might be,
Yeah. And the only reason why I think maybe close combat will be needed is if Tinkaton comes back, just to take 50% of Tinkaton with close combat. Otherwise, I don't see a real case to use close combat. But yeah, we will see how the meta will develop. Okay, staying in the in your season recap, what was the the matchup the player, the opponent, or the round where you suffered the most and you were exhausted after battling?
I don't really remember such a matchup where I was exhausted, at least from this season. It can get the most things I remember are from previous seasons where there were disputes or mostly disputes where it took a long time to finish the matches. But other than that, there isn't something that sticks to memory that wasn't particularly exhausting.
Okay, or maybe just the most spectacular battles you had this season, I guess, against your opponents.
The most what? Sorry.
The most spectacular ones.
Well, Bologna, even though I lost the matches, the stream matches were, I think I could showcase some good plays, for example, against Nickname, where I waited a turn to see the catch and continued attacking, but I still lost. But plays like that, and against XXL Cactus, there was a play where I showed my Talonflame. I waited for a turn because I was with Talonflame against Jumplove, and I waited for a turn to let him do in Fairy Wind and switch into my Ferret when he switched into his Feraligator. And so I predicted his switch and I switched one turn ahead of him. So my Ferret was one turn ahead on energy, which helped me a lot. But unfortunately, I was already in a tough spot, so it didn't let me turn around the battle. But it was really nice to predict the swap and be one turn ahead, and it worked.
Yeah, that's a lot of 50-50 you have to guess in this kind of match. And as the average level or the quality level just rises over the years, it's harder and harder to outplay your opponent just with standard play game. Playing standard, optimizing the energy is no longer enough. You need to rely your success on mind games, try and predict your opponent lines, and try and predict this kind of very small moments where you don't know whether to wait one turn or to just go straight for the move, because nowadays everyone waits one turn. So most of the time probably you're just better off throwing your move immediately.
Yeah, I wouldn't say everyone waits a turn. The top players, most of them do, but I think it's also kind of a skill against players you don't know, predicting if they will wait a turn or not, and adjusting properly, what will be the best play if you don't know if they wait a turn. Sometimes you still want to wait a turn. Sometimes if you play against an unknown player, it's also a skill like predicting how high level the plays will be and calling things accordingly.
Yeah, because all the choices you can potentially make are actually sound and sensible, but depending on which level you are thinking and on which level your opponent is thinking, waiting one turn can be or cannot be the right thing to do in those situations. And more often than not, you don't know that early. You just have to just toss a mental coin and hoping you get the right side.
Yeah, I think you can kind of early in the match, there are some signs how high level the play will be, like the timing of the fast moves, if they time it properly, how good the energy measurement is. For example, if they win CMP and they throw on CMP, or if they have low attack, then they overfarm and throw immediately shortly before you use your charge move. If you recognize such things, you know that your opponent is a somewhat high level, so you might also expect that they might wait a turn. If they are more likely to, if you notice they more often throw immediately, then you can tell they probably also won't wait a turn, things like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of small details that you can gather while the game progresses, but unfortunately is not an exact science. So sometimes you might see very, very advanced plays from someone you would have never expected. Some, and sometimes just assist to very basic gameplay from what are supposed to be very advanced players. And sometimes advanced players do basic gameplays or just basic plays just to throw you off guard. So that's also something to consider.
Sometimes basic gameplay is all you need, because you can RPS and win just based on alignment. So then you don't need those advanced plays.
Oh yeah, also let's not forget that if you guess correctly, switching back, there's nothing your opponent can do as long as you are a good quality player. And yeah, and I have the feeling that as the years pass in this like PvP circuit where everyone got more and more confident with OGL, and at the end of a meta rotation, it's always harder to play even against less expert opponents, because everyone has understood by then the core matchups that the meta rotation has, while at the beginning of a meta rotation everything is pretty new and expert players can have an edge or more than an edge. They just start a couple of steps ahead compared to the rest of, I would call them average players, but yeah, pass me the term. But yeah, so once the meta rotation is almost at the end, everyone knows how to play the Drapion as a matchup perfectly on one side or on the other side. So yeah, not really. I mean, that's probably also a good thing, I guess, just to make things harder for good players to prevail on less expert players, because knowledge can be absorbed from less experienced players as well and at the end of the meta rotation. But yeah, okay, so we have spoken about some of your toughest matches during this season, and what about a player you think you have suffered in this season? Maybe his play style or her play style was difficult for you to adapt to, and so maybe for this reason you would like not to face in Worlds, or at least let it be just the latest as possible.
Checking the results to think about what was particularly difficult, but I think most of the time I had play like was difficult, as I mentioned earlier, is sometimes there's just a core breaker like Talonflame in Gedanks that it's very difficult to find a team that works. But playstyle wise, I think I don't remember a match where I felt like I had no play at all. Sometimes you just out predicted, but overall, I guess I played a lot against Inadequence. I have a very negative record, but other than that, most players who I played against a lot, I have a somewhat of a more or less neutral total count of total record.
Okay, and is there instead a player that you actually would love to face in Worlds? Maybe just to get your revenge, maybe because you are friends with them?
Nobody particular on my mind. There are just a lot of top players I haven't played against in show 6 Pix Relax, like for example, except for Dancing Rob, I haven't played against the other world champions. So that would be also nice. Always nice to play against one of them. So it's Exxon or Yakai, I think was the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but to this question, I usually answer maybe someone I never played against in person, maybe someone from US. Yes, so I don't know, maybe someone I played against virtually, like remotely in grassroots formats many times. So for me, it would be Rise to Occasion, for example, and I never played him in person. It would be nice just to face him, but still, maybe like the latest possible stage in the tournament. I really don't want to face Rise in round 2. I probably don't want to face anyone in round 2, but yeah, someone I would like to play against someone eventually in round 1, especially because there is no seeding, right? So yeah, you can just face the toughest players in the whole world, and they can be all in your group, and unlucky.
I have a funny streak of the last 2 Worlds. So both 24 and 23 round 1, I played against a player who eventually made it into the winners finals. So last year it was Matogalda in round 1, and the year before that it was Vedash round 1.
Okay.
So we'll see if that repeats.
Okay, so if I face you in round 1, actually have to be happy about this. Yeah.
Yeah, if you win, yeah, you have to be happy.
Yeah. And okay, in your season, were there a Pokemon that actually disappointed you? Like you were believing in it and it just let you down. It wasn't good enough. Maybe you could never use.
Not too sure about that. I think most of the Pokemon, yeah, I reused it sometimes. Like I think most of them did well. Probably Miltank was one of the Pokemon I only used once. But I don't remember in particular letting me down. Yeah, I don't remember being particularly disappointed into any single Pokemon.
Okay. And were your Miltank in Birmingham running Ice Beam or Thunderbolt? It's a second move.
I think it was Thunderbolt for the Arts Merrill matchup. I was considering double nuke Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, and I think there were some matches where it would have helped me, but the staminess of Body Slam was too useful to let go of when I chose a team.
Yeah. But fun fact, actually,
I do believe I did play it with Ice Beam in some practice tournaments, but ultimately they decided on Thunderbolt, mostly because of Arts Merrill.
Yeah, I mean, both have their advantages. Like a more solid matchup against Diggersby and Clodsire for Ice Beam, and a more solid matchup for Azumarill, and being able to scare Feraligatr and other water types. So yeah, I suppose it makes sense. Fun fact: I was almost sold on double nuke Miltank for EUIC, and I changed team like in 3 a.m. the night before, and I decided that I didn't want to go 0-2 because of double nuke Miltank. And yeah, especially because my team was kind of weakish to Drapion, and yeah, not being able to throw quickly something against Drapion was probably a bad choice. So yeah, I'm glad that changed the team. Okay, so I actually want to ask you about some more strategy. So what's your approach if you have a particular approach when you are down in a set? How do you reset your mind and trying to, because especially when you're on stream, it can be really, I mean, you really feel the pressure on you sometimes. At least I do. And it's not always easy to just clear your mind of anything negative and try and think the game 2 is as game 1 and try to forget about game 1.
For me, yeah, all I can say is I try to think from game to game, from match to match, and if I lose the first one, I try not to think about what happens if I go 2. I just think of winning the next match, and yeah, have that approach. I don't find it, for me personally, too difficult to have a fresh approach to each match. Like, well, it was a while ago, but in Malmo, when I won in Malmo in the grand finals, I was down 0-2, and there wasn't a moment where I panicked, like I'm almost losing. I just reset my mind and thought, okay, how do I win this match game? What was a pattern of the last few games or the last game if there was only one? What's my strategy for the next game? And try not to think about the total score, but just of the next game in singular. And that works for me personally. For whatever reason, I don't get too nervous on stream. The only thing that makes me nervous is mostly the first rounds because of the double elimination format.
Yeah.
If you lose the first round, that can be very tough on you. So I get nervous before the first game. What if I lose this one and have to fight through the losers bracket? But if I make it to winners round 4 and I know I'm in the run, if I already get CP, then from that moment I'm usually relaxed, and also that are the matches that are on stream. So when I am on stream, I I'm mostly relaxed and don't stress too much about what's going to happen next, because I know I got some points that will help me to make it to Worlds, and everything from there is mostly a bonus. I like to think of it like that.
Oh yes, when you just get into the points, you actually you're way more relaxed, that you are able to see the games and approach them in a more aggressive way, maybe, just because at the end of the day you don't care this much because you already got most of what you wanted, especially if your objective was just to qualify for Worlds, and maybe those extra points are just the ones you needed just to take some break after this. So yeah, after you get into the points, you can just play just more relaxed. Yeah, definitely. And okay, how much time do you before regional? How much time do you spend team building?
It varies. There were actually some events where I threw together a team and practiced maybe once or twice, and that was it. For the bigger events, like for USC, maybe I think the average for the bigger events maybe that's probably around 5 practice, probably around 5 practice tournaments with 5 rounds. So yeah, around between 20 and 30 practice matches is probably the average for events, but I definitely plan to do more for Worlds.
And have you felt a difference when you practice more, or when you just go with your gut? And
I think the thing it helps most with is knowing your matchups, because sometimes when I put a new Pokemon on my team where I'm not too sure of the matchups, I don't feel safe using it, and I'm more likely to leave it on the bench. So if I know the matchups and I know if it's good to play in the good as a safe solver in the lead, and I know what it can and what it can't do, I feel more safer using it. And if I add something to my team that I have very little practice with, it ends up on the bench most of the time, and it's kind of almost like a wasted slot, except of course for the bench pressure. But it's different how much that bench pressure can help.
Okay, so you're gonna you say that you're gonna practice a lot for Worlds. Do you usually scrim just with the same partners over and over again, or are you planning on just scrimming with lots of Worlds contenders?
Just with Worlds contenders, or I don't know who practices it, like on the inadequacy server, the practice tournaments. It probably will be mostly Worlds attendees, but whoever signs up.
Okay. Aren't you afraid of just giving some secrets away? I don't know if you are talking. I don't know if you are thinking about maybe a potential code breaker that no one has thought about yet. But yeah, for me, for example, I'm a bit afraid of just revealing what I'm thinking about, what I'm building now, because if my idea just gets some traction, maybe because I end up winning one of those practices, then like my pick is just going to be a common pick, or maybe just it's not going to be the surprise one. Aren't you afraid of this?
I'm not too afraid of it. Like, it might happen, but I think it's not that likely. So I prefer to get the practice in and don't worry too much about if anyone else steals the team, since as it currently is, you only see the team of your opponent, and only the teams of the winner get published. So it's kind of unlikely that anyone sees your team, and even if other people see your team, it's not too likely that someone steals your team unless it's super successful and keeps winning. And even then, I'd only worry if I have a really rare pick that I think no one's going to use here other than me. We'll see about. If I end up with something really unusual, maybe I'll think about keeping it secret. But at the moment, I haven't decided on a team for Worlds yet, so I don't know if that will be the case.
Yeah, it's going to be 2 months still, so in 2 months can happen everything. and we got a peek at what the world's meta is going to be with the NAIC, and tomorrow we're gonna have one more snapshot of the meta with the Japanese qualifiers. Will be access to some teams, but yeah, the Japanese meta is usually way more different than the European meta or from the US meta or the North American or South American meta. So I don't know how much importance I should give to those teams, because Japanese players or playing from Asia are usually known for using crazy picks, and they actually use them really well too. So yeah, but also might be nice just to get to know some picks that you were neglecting, and you realize, oh gosh, I actually lose 5 times to this, so I should maybe rethink my team. So yeah, it can be a win-win situation where you actually get to know some more information, and yeah, probably that's also crucial, because practice usage data is not as defining as you might think it is, especially because the top 20 is going to be that one, but the proportions are not going to be the same. So, for example, talking about the NAIC, I was not expecting this many dust clubs. I was expecting some, of course. So it was definitely in my top 5 in the usage idea. But seeing over 70% for both forms of dust club was a bit crazy for me. And also I was expecting at least 60% of Diggersby and 60% of the Dene, because in practice tournaments everyone had those two, but still it was around 30% each. Also fewer Jellicent. I was expecting way more Jellicent. And were you expecting this many Mandibas?
To be honest, I didn't really expect anything, because I went with a mindset, there's no point worrying about the meta before NIC, because I'm not going to play any events, so I'll just let the players who attend NIC figure it out and start building my teams for Worlds from there. So yeah.
Okay, so you save your mental energies for later. You're not okay. So you're not one of those players who build in parallel, try and see how their meta reads are on point. You just wait for them just to do all the dirty job and all the dirty work.
Yeah, because NIC was so early into the season, and it's still 2 months to Worlds. I figured spending I think 2 weeks between the meta change and NIC thinking about teams wouldn't be too useful. So I just let the North Americans and whoever else attended figure it out and go from there.
Yeah. And were there any standout performances in the NIC, Pokemon-wise, actually just surprised you positively, and you're expecting to be central at Worlds?
I think other from those that were kind of be too expected, like I didn't think too much about what we top meta, but I expected things like Diggersby and Jaden. But maybe one standout pick that for me was Shadow Scissor, which performed very well. So that's one pick I will also probably think about, because Bullet Punch is as strong as Counter, and Counter was meta defining. Sucker Punch not quite as much, but Bullet Punch, didn't think of it too much yet, but I think it does have potential, and it's probably the one other from those that what we expected that stood out the most to me.
Yeah, and maybe for this reason we're gonna see more fire types, just because Scissor is very scary. So maybe more Talonflame. If you are a Talonflame enjoyer, this is definitely the right time for you to bring Talonflame once more this year. And I'm thinking about Talonflame as well, and it's probably the best fire type you can use now, because there is Typhlosion, there is potentially Skeledirge as well, and the Skeledirge matchup is not this bad against Diggersby. You actually win. You have win conditions against Diggersby, and but the fact that you need a 5-taps that is able to beat Manslap users as well. And this because the Den is going to be super centralizing, so more and more counter Marowak potentially are going to be used. And so where you actually, I know that you don't think about the meta before the NIC was played, but I mean, I trust you actually maybe might have some surprised reaction when you saw Greninja just making the appearance in the meta. Do you think we're gonna see more Greninja for Worlds, or was just a nice one-time call, but then maybe with all these Araquanids is going to disappear again?
Were there many Araquanids? I only remember it's Exxon, or was it?
Yeah, it's Exxon, Doombag for sure. At least those two were the ones that appeared on stream. They got featured, but I don't know how many Araquanids actually were used. Okay, 3 Araquanids in the whole tournament.
But all of them performed quite well, so might be a good call.
Yeah, it was definitely a good call. And what about Greninja?
Wasn't really a Pokemon I was expecting, especially I knew that the Den was going to be super popular just because of how strong parabolic charges. So yeah, just from knowledge that the Den will be everywhere, from that Greninja wasn't the Pokemon I would have expected.
Yeah, there were more Greninja than Araquanid.
That's crazy.
So there were eight Greninja. Spider-Man's Valus, Udash, and then other players who didn't get this far in the tournament. But yeah, that's actually crazy. I would have never called Greninja to be more frequent than Araquanid. And also Kanto Marowak was definitely a very nice call. We had 10 Kanto Marowak, and yes, I do believe it was actually very good. And we will see some more, especially because the main grass type is now Credily, but now Credily has Acid.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely, the meta looks good to use a Mud Slapper, because I think from the top 6 usage, the only hard counter was Mandibuzz. So yeah, Mud Slap user might be a good call for Worlds.
Yeah,
probably Kanto Marowak. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mandibuzz now is running Air Slash, and Kanto Marowak is actually having a decent matchup against Air Slash Mandibuzz, so not even this concerning. And next question that I want to ask you: are you already just writing something down for your team building? Are you already have an idea? Will you be practicing soon, or are you just gonna wait for maybe July before starting some practice tournaments?
Not quite yet. I want to start soon, but I haven't written down particular ideas yet. I will base it on the NIC meta mostly. Also, maybe the meta from the Japan qualifiers will also give me some ideas for potential core breakers. Maybe the top meta will probably not be too telling, but I do think that the top performing teams might give some good ideas for potential core breakers to keep in mind. So I probably, I want to start soon, maybe next week or the week after that. I think would be a good time, because for a lot of events, especially after UIC, I knew that I would skip Stockholm and Sevilla, so I didn't practice for a long time, and then suddenly it was only 2 weeks to Utrecht, and it was a little short to get the practice in. But luckily, the first team I built turned out to work in practice, so I didn't have to change too much, and work from there. For Worlds, I expect to have to change more, because I'll definitely invest more time in practicing and figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
Well, I'm thinking the same. I think the last 2 tournaments of the season, I just went there already qualified without any big objectives. Of course, just try and get into this stipend range would have been great, but it was still a long shot. I just needed probably top 4 or something like this in either Bologna or Utrecht, and I didn't get too many reps in as I would have needed. I just didn't practice at all, basically, because I was already satisfied with my season. But yeah, and I could feel the difference. I could feel the difference from when I had the anxiety of getting qualified, and it was around Birmingham, London, and Stockholm. I had so much practice, so much study. I put so much effort in it that I was way more confident with the picks and the matchups, and yeah, so it eventually just paid off when I practiced, and it didn't pay off when I didn't. So yeah, definitely for Worlds as well. Just my main proposition is just practicing more and more. But on the other hand, yeah, I was a bit afraid of practicing with the same people that I will likely face in Anaheim. So I wanted just to practice with those 2 or 3 players I trust, and I know they won't be going to Worlds. But on the other hand, you can't really practice just against 3 different playstyles. You need to practice against all of them. So maybe, yeah, you just have to bite the bullet and to accept that you will have to just to give some information away. Maybe you can play with standard Pokemon if you don't want to give any particular information, but just feeling the pulse of what is going on, what other players are using, or maybe just to see their play style. Yeah, so just to realize what your opponents are bringing against you, how they play, if they are more ABA prone or ABB lovers. So yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, I also think that you mentioned it. It's not something I did too much, but I think it can be helpful just playing hard meta teams, just so you know how to play it. So you can also tell when your opponent plays such a hard meta team, how will they play it, because you know what's a good core from that team of picks is, or how it works overall. So when you know how to play it, you can bet it's easier to predict what an opponent using a similar team might use.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. And okay, is there a Pokemon that this is a recurrent question that I asked to my guests. Is there Pokemon you are not planning to bring, but because maybe you don't feel brave enough, but you believe it would be really good into some teams, and it could be a very nice surprise, but you won't be bringing it at all because you don't have the guts, or you're afraid it might be just underperform?
I haven't looked enough into what I might play yet, but maybe not for Worlds, but one Pokemon I always want to try and never bring it to regionals is Salazzle. Played in some cups and challenges. It's so frail, but sometimes it can be very fun. And like I remember a few seasons back when Dunsparce was meta, like it could win the 2 shield, just incinerate through. Things like that are quite crazy. So it has some play, and I would love it if I find a meta where it works, but I think it's just my last meta there was Psywave users to be afraid of. I'm not sure of the current meta. I haven't checked, but every time there's a new meta, I at some point I check would Salazzle work in the current meta.
Yeah, well, Salazzle is definitely a cup and challenge material. In those events is where you can just afford bringing some stupid picks because you know it's gonna work. And I don't know actually why almost everyone brings a lot of off-meta Pokemon in Cups and Challenges, but I've been beaten in London by someone having Fortress and Pidgeot when they weren't a thing at all, and no one was using them. And I faced a second Pidgeot the round after, and I was so weak to Pidgeot. Yeah, so I just got back home empty-handed. Yeah, with no points. It was really, I don't know. Do you have any idea of why this happens? Like, everyone using strange pigs. You using Salazar also in Cups and Challenges.
Sorry, what were you asking about the special picks?
Is there any particular reason you can see for players using very off meta picks during these locals?
You can play a lot of locals, and if you don't perform well with it doesn't matter as much as regionals, because regionals and internationals, the amount you can play is very limited. Even if you can travel to all of them, there's still only one per month. And locals, if you are lucky with the region you're in, you can play multiple cups and challenges per month. So it's a good chance to try off meta picks, because if it doesn't perform well, it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, maybe also because if you are meeting with your friends and you're playing with your friends, and you're gonna have a laugh about it, and yeah, so just using some meme picks and then off to the pub altogether.
Yeah.
So also, yeah, this kind of social dimension in the locals. So speaking about your local scene, did you have the chance to attend many locals relatively close to your home? How is it, the local scene in your place, in your city?
It was tough until I think the middle of this season, because in my estate there weren't any locals at all until last season. So most of the cups I played were in the Netherlands, and there I always, you have all the top Dutch players almost there every time. Like every other time there's Protectical, Inadequance, Colin,
Stan.
Yeah, he wasn't there quite as often, but yeah, Colin Inadequance, I think I faced almost every time. So it was very tough getting points from locals. But now we do have a local just one city over where I can travel easily, and we do play cups and challenges most months, but also our local scene isn't quite big. So most of the time it's Stone Collection, Leo, the caster, who also is at this time got quite well, and me. So those three are almost there. Then we gather a handful of other players at best. So it's always between us three to get points. So it's never easy to get points locally, but we do have somewhat of a scene, but yeah, it's very little.
Yeah, I mean, I get you. You're speaking with someone that to get some points has to beat Maxi, Tomahawk, Kazim. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense to me as well. So any local players that you think they have grown game wise, playstyle wise, and they maybe have what it takes to become a good player if they put more effort?
Well, as our scene is quite small, though, Leonard König is the only one who comes to mind, because I know from when I won Malmo, like we was a caster, I felt he didn't know very much about the game, but it's got a lot better very quickly, and he wins a lot more often. And I think of course he's casting most of the time, but he does have the potential to, if he would play regionals, to perform quite well, maybe make a top cut. But I think because he plays regionals so rarely, nerves are maybe one of the issues. But because in practice he performs quite well, but because he plays regionals so rarely, the few he did play, he didn't perform too well, but he would have the potential to do better.
Yeah. And is Gastrodon your favorite PvP Pokemon?
For this season, probably yes, but
all time? And sorry? What about all time?
Back in 23, I really liked using Gliscor. It wasn't kind of off-meta, anti-meta, but it really worked for a long time. This and last season, I had to change my team with almost every meta change. But in 23, there was a point where my Gliscor team just worked for me, and I think I used it for like 4 or 5 events in a row, and it worked really well because there were ice types very rare that hard countered it. So the only somewhat common hard counter was Water Gun Lantern. So I really liked using it back then, and unfortunately, yeah, Wing Attack, of course, got nerfed, and Ice types became more common, and there were other water types like Feraligatr that got popular. So there was a time where it stopped being usable, but I really enjoyed the time where it was because it worked for a very long time.
I saw that you actually almost never used Medicham in 2023. So only once in Liverpool. And was that because, I mean, what was your reasoning behind not using Medicham? Because everyone else was using Medicham, basically.
Yeah, I somewhat have the mindset I don't want to only use hard meta, so I skip some of the Pokemon that are used by everyone and more closer to try to counter that particular Pokemon. So I always try to at least a little, not to only use the top picks, and Medicham was one I skipped often. In particular, for when I settled on the Gliscor team, as you mentioned, I had it in Liverpool, Medicham on the team, but I figured if I remember correctly, I was in particular weak to Sableye, so I had to change something, and just replacing Sableye, Medicham with Sableye was the correct call in the end. So that's how Medicham got out of the team.
Yeah. One more question is about your favorite Pokemon. So you told me that you played all the main series games. So did you start with Red and Blue?
Yeah. That's also
Nice.
my first favorite Pokemon was Dragonair, and I'm always happy when I can use it in PvP. I think last season there were a couple of tournaments where it was usable. I don't think it's too good into the current meta, but I think the Body Slam nerf definitely hurt it. But last year there were a couple of tournaments where it was usable, and it's still one of my favorite Pokemon, and it always has a special place in my heart because it was my first favorite Pokemon when I first played.
Yeah, especially because I remember in Red, Blue, and Yellow, getting Dratini was so time consuming. You had to fish in the Safari Zone lake. Yeah, and it was and you would have a hard time trying to catch Dratini. So you had to give him the bait and hoping he wouldn't escape, and just throwing Safari balls until there was the one that actually just Dratini entered in. And after that, it was really, really hard to train because it just requires a lot of experience, XP points. But yeah, once you got to Dragonite, you could just beat the Indigo League so easily. So it was very rewarding, especially after all the effort that you put into training Dratini and Dragonair. And so, given that your favorite Pokemon is Dragonair, or at least your first favorite one, would your gym be a Dragon type gym?
Yeah, I do think so. Back in the day, like we had ideas with some friends. So back in the main series games, like what would a gym type be? And I always wanted Dragon. Yeah, Dragonair was my first favorite Dragon Pokemon, and I think I like most of the later generations, the Dragons also. So yeah, it was also in my mind that Dragon types is probably still one of my favorite types. So that's definitely stuck with me.
Well, you can still use Dragonair in Worlds. I know you don't think it's very good at the moment, but I believe it's not this trash either. Like Wrap can be useful to prepare for a Dragon Breath hometown. But as long as we will have Caesar around and the Denny around, it's going to be hard to bring it safely. And what are you hoping for? A move update post Worlds, that is something, maybe there is a Pokemon or a charge move or a fast move that you would like to see upgraded or downgraded?
I haven't thought that far yet because it's still time to get into the current meta, so I haven't thought that far ahead. But
you can expand the context in general of this question. Maybe not specifically in the moves, on the charge moves, or on the Pokemon or move updates, but maybe more generally something that you wouldn't mind to see some fresh air in PvP, maybe some different mechanics, change the timer duration, something like this.
Yeah, I definitely like more mechanics, something like abilities or held items to raise the skill ceiling, because I think currently there's a lot of players that are close to the skill ceiling and there are very small differences. So if there are more things to consider and more strategies possible, I think that would help the game, because currently, many players are close to the skill ceiling, and another problem is that there's still the element of RPS. So an average player who knows their matchups can still be the top player if they have a alignment-based team and just pick correctly, they can still win. And I'd like if there were more possibilities other than having neutral picks to play against that, to be able to outplay opponents. And if someone plays a Bastion-based team and you get the wrong alignment, it's even against an average player, it's very hard to recover. So I'd definitely like more possibilities, like I think more closest to the main series game, held items or abilities that might give more possibilities how to play.
Yeah, I mean, probably just the introduction of something like leftovers. That every charge move you just get maybe 5% of your HP back, or just a tool that gets your charge move the stab multiplier, even if it's not of your same type, or maybe something related to weather conditions, maybe like rainy ability or sunny ability, just to get more powerful fire types or water type moves. It wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, it might be difficult to balance some things, to make sure some things aren't too overpowered. If you copy abilities one by one from the main series, you could quickly have something that is overpowered. Like if you have the abilities for starters that I think for the starters, if you have less than 1/3 of your HP, I think the charge moves deal of the same type deal 50% more damage. Something like that would probably be overpowered, but there's probably a lot of things that could be implemented and they could be somewhat balanced. Like a Pokemon that isn't too strong currently, give it something like Levitate, which would give it a resistance to ground types, a double resistance, something like that. If the Pokemon isn't too strong normally, I think it would at least expand the knowledge you need to know what works and what doesn't, because you need to know, okay, that this has a limited ability, so ground types won't be super effective. It might, to some extent, might already extend the skill ceiling, because you need more knowledge to know what works in what situation.
Yeah, well, there's a whole world of potential updates that they can introduce, but yeah, if they will ever want to make a items update or a weather condition update, yeah, they're better off just starting very slow with something very simple. Otherwise, yeah, that's the high risk of breaking something that was kind of working. It gets definitely higher and higher. And would you consider for the next year to potentially traveling overseas to other regionals? Because this is something that we have seen from European players this season now. Of course, now we have like the small travel awards to allow people just to travel to LAIC and NAIC and whatever. But besides this, also traveling to other regional overseas, would you consider that, or just prefer to just sticking to Europe?
I do think it's something I might enjoy. I considered it for this season because I really was over to NA for not Pokemon related reason twice, and I checked if there were regionals that I could combine it with the trip, but unfortunately there wasn't any. I did consider NAIC, but didn't fit into my schedule. But it's something the possibility is always there, and I do think I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's
or you can start very strong. Yeah, and you can start very strong at the beginning of the next season. Maybe just getting the travel award for the LAIC. And okay, just out of curiosity, a personal question for me. Which programming language are you using?
For the job I have, it's mostly Java. Well,
Okay.
yeah, mostly. We also, because a company is very old, there's some script language that no one except us uses, but it's still there. So yeah, but the most new programs we do is in Java.
Okay, yeah. I'm a Python user, so probably I'm the one that guys like you make fun of most of the time. I know that Pythonists are just subject to a lot of memes because they too easy of a language. Yeah, so I accept that.
I don't care too much what other people program it, but Python was. I did use it to some extent in university. There was one big project we used it for, so I do enjoy it. And it's not for efficient programs, but that's not a problem. You just use it for whenever it's for your use case, it's the right thing.
Okay. And before we say goodbye, just you have some time to let people who are watching this know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and your journey on the social media, and if you do any coaching. So this is your moment. The microphone is yours.
Yeah, well, you can find me on most socials with just Zephymastyx. I'm mostly active on Twitter, and I do have a YouTube channel. I have a small series on strategies, how to predict when to catch moves, that is quite in detail. So I think a lot of players from different skill levels might learn something from that. So yeah, mostly on YouTube and Twitter. Just search for Zephymastyx and you will find me.
Okay, I will definitely have a look at the content on how to predict when to catch moves. It's going to be maybe useful just for Worlds. Okay, so thanks, Zephy, for staying with me. It's been a nice hour, and I hope you had fun too.
Yeah.
So see you in 2 months. See you this summer, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Bye.